So we are coming to our last speaker for today, which is Yeye Luisah Teish from the US. She's an author, storyteller, activist, and elder in the Ifa Orisha tradition of the African diaspora. And she will hold a presentation about rainbow flag imperialism and trans tyranny and their impact on the human rights of Black women.
I want to begin by saying Alafia. And Alafia is a greeting in Yoruba, wherein I am wishing you good health and peace with your neighbor. I also want to say that I am a Black heterosexual woman who has been an ally to the gay community for about 40 years, and an Iyanifa, a high priestess in the Ifa Orisha tradition of the West African diaspora, which becomes important as we progress in this presentation. As far back as 1966, I was in college in Oregon and the only little Black thing in the psychology club. And there came a weekend when the head appointed us to various places related to the issue of psychology. Who little Black girl got appointed to the Oregon Primate Center, monkey, where I found a man there with 2 cages of pregnant monkeys. And he explained to me that the monkeys in this cage were carrying generic males and the monkeys in this cage were carrying generic females. And he was interjecting the opposite hormones into the placenta at a certain stage. When I asked him why he was doing this, he said it was pure research. And I left because there's no such thing in the hands of a white man as pure research. Our history tells us that pure research is done on us monkeys, Black people, as Suzanne's thing has shown so clearly, okay? The work that I'm presently doing now came into being because of a Facebook post, okay? I had been trying to dispel some of the misinformation about Yoruba tradition on my Facebook page. And then there came a day when Bruce Jenner made the front of the Vanity Fair cover, and somebody posted that Bruce Jenner was more woman than Serena Williams. That was when I cut Bruce Jenner a new asshole and pointed out the racism in that statement, okay? And the backlash that came from that, my life was threatened. My online classes were boycotted to the tune of $9,000. And, you know, at various times I had to stand up for my right to hold woman-only events. I stand on my right to hold woman-only events, to define who woman is and to do what the hell I see fit to do, okay? So what has come out of this is because of the hassle, in our tradition, we seek divination to find out what the ancestors and the spirits want us to do. But when I sought divination to ask what was my proper place in relationship to this, the goddess Oya, who is the queen of the winds of change, our warrior queen, said, Osa Oworin, expose the underbelly of this thing and stand your ground. Okay. And so when people come to me who think that they are trans, I send them to another priestess who says she's been identified as the person to deal with such people. Then I wrote the article, Patriarchy in Drag, Sexual Imperialism in Africa and Delusional Revisionism in the African American Community, for the Female Erasure Anthology. That's the image of Oya, the goddess of the winds of change, okay? And she destroys stagnation and brings about unconditional change. Okay. It should be said that this trans issue is being addressed under the direction of Oya, and the basic message is is that we have to fight this thing because it is not sustainable. It is not sustainable. Okay. When I talk about rainbow flag imperialism, okay, I would like for to say that sexual imperialism is manifested in a number of ways, which Suzanne has explained exquisitely. Okay, it has meant that non-European people have been the targets of European fantasy, projected desires, guilt and shame, and scientific surveillance and experimentation. In the contemporary moment, sexual imperialism also looks like the campaigns that the US religious right has fermented in Africa to encourage religious intolerance toward homosexuality. It also looks like rainbow flag imperialism, which the brother who Professor Ibrahim Farah JJ defines as, he says, both the US religious right and the mainstream LGBT movement tend to ignore the indigenous forms of sexual and gender diversity that existed in Africa for millennia. The religious rights efforts depend upon the colonial roots that Christian missionaries planted in Africa centuries ago. The mainstream LGBT movement's efforts depend upon the neoliberal capitalist roots planted by multinational corporations and NGO missionaries who are now exploiting all of us behind their greed. You know, at this point, they're really pressuring African nations into accepting trans ideology, including gender surgeries, which is a 20th century European invention. We never had it in Africa. Sex trafficking and pedophilia, with the threat of withholding vital aid and services if they do not comply. Now, what is really, really hard to take is that the amount of pressure that they're putting out on these African nations to accept this foolishness is causing them to overreact and to institute laws that are more severe than anything that ever existed before. So, for example, right now in Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan has declared that people can be arrested for walking gay, for walking gay. And the churches, the fundamentalist churches there are in encouraging people to attack gay people on the street, to beat them up, okay, while the white boys, basically the white boys who want to be women, which they can never be, okay, are imposing themselves and their will upon Black people. It was very, very painful for me during one of those Facebook arguments to see such a white boy holding up a Black baby, and he took a picture and said, "I got me one." You know, that's the kind of foolishness that Black women have had to put up with in relationship to this whole transgender issue. Now, I want to talk about delusional revisionism in the African community, African American community, okay? It is being perpetuated by the mainstream media, which tries to tell us that traditional African society was always transgender, non-binary, and a host of other selective statements that they make, okay? These days, some of this is due to the misinterpretation of something that was said by a very popular West African priest, Molly Doma Some. Molly Doma said, but at least among the Dagara people, gender has little to do with anatomy. It is purely energetic. The whole notion of gay does not exist in the indigenous world. That does not mean that there are not people who feel this way, that certain people feel in this culture that has led them to being referred to as gay. The gay person is looked at primarily as a gatekeeper. Any person who is at this link between this world and the other world experiences a state of vibrational consciousness which is far higher and far different from one that a normal person would experience. This is what makes a gay person gay. You decide that you will be a gatekeeper before you are born. So when you arrive here, you begin to vibrate in a way that elders can detect as meaning that you are connected with a gateway somewhere. Now, what has happened is that a lot of people that I encounter have taken Molly Doma's comment and skewed it because they don't know the culture, and they say that he's saying that, oh, everybody's transgender. I would like to clarify, as a Yoruba priestess, okay, to say that the Yoruba people have a post-birth ritual that spells out the future of the boy or the girl after 9 days of birth. It's called an asentaye. The sex of the child is chosen by the spirit of the child before they leave the land of the ancestors. In some societies, the child is seen as genderless in the social sense until their rite of passage. But we look at who is born and we say, this is a boy, this is a girl, and we're having the asentaye. Until the puberty rite comes up, the pronouns are not he and she. In fact, in Yoruba society, once a set of adults have a child, they are identified by the name of the child, not even by their own gender. Should a boy fail the test of manhood, such as wrestling a female buffalo, crying at his circumcision, or failing at warrior skills, he may be relegated into his own society, sometimes known as Adodi, and sent to live among his own kind, and to dress like a woman, learn the skills of a woman, and to marry a man to act out the same gender roles. The horrible surgery, which essentially neuters a person, is a 20th century European invention. We understand that the sky is androgynous, that is, it is regarded as male with a female element within it. The ocean is gynandrous, regarded as female with a male element in it. If men are the sun and women are the moon, there exists dusk and dawn, the children of twilight. This is the balanced binary. Such people are often called into ceremony at specific times or seated in the back of the congregation. There is no such thing as non-binary, gender neutral. It does not exist in African society. What you're looking at here is the Gelede masquerade, wherein men dress in the costumes of women to celebrate the power of women. And it is often done as an apology for unruly male behavior. I served a man who had to dance gelede to appease the spirit of his mother, who cursed him on her deathbed. So this masquerade here is not a put down of women. It is not men who think they are women. It is men who are acknowledging the power of woman. Now, these boys who want to be girls, these children of the twilight, cry that they're two-spirit. And that's a gross insult and a thief of our Native American kindred's culture. I am a member of the Mother Earth delegation of Indigenous women. And the Native American women will tell you this stuff has nothing to do with them, and just the fact that they just steal the term two-spirit is ridiculous, okay? In our traditions, in the traditions of the West African diaspora, we claim two-headedness without respect, to the body of the person. If I am a child of an Orisha who is a male Orisha, When I am possessed by that Orisha, I am both a human female and the male spirit, and vice versa. But at the end of that possession, you return to your normal self. Okay, it only happens during a ceremony, and at that time you are both human and deity. Further, people just declaring that I'm two spirit or declaring that I'm two headed is some more bullshit, because this is achieved only through initiation, not self declaration. We have women's societies and men's societies. Most importantly, the respect for women and the attack on women's spaces is totally unheard of. Okay. The most powerful of these is the Iyami. The Iyami is the society of older women. They are considered to be the mothers of the world, and even the king of Yorubaland has to have them there in order to be crowned. So this business of interjecting themselves into women's affairs, claiming spiritual superiority, all of this stuff that these boys in the twilight are doing is totally inconsistent with African belief. What is very hurtful to me is what I call trans tyranny. Black women are being disrespected and attacked. I've encountered young women who are afraid of the word binary, who parrot the trans rhetoric with no examination of what is actually being said. And worse, Black women's jobs are threatened if they do not agree to trans language. I'm told that calling a person by the pronoun that fits their sex is a hate crime. I want the act of calling me a nigger bitch to be a hate crime. Let's take all these people to jail if that's what we're going to do. I refuse to be labeled cis, to call my vagina a front hole, or to participate in the other delusions. Recently, I've seen articles denying the severity of the plantation with a claim that buck breaking never happened. Buck breaking was a situation where, in addition to the rape that was done to the women, a man who stood up was tied across a tree trunk, and the master lined men up to rape him as a demonstration of his powerlessness. So now you have people saying stuff like, oh, buck breaking never happened, that was imaginary, and oh, by the way, Harriet Tubman is a fictional character. I watch television and I notice on Fox, the shows that come on the Fox channel repeatedly show a very masculine Black man and state that he is trans and state that we're standing up for them and, oh, we accept you. It repeatedly shows Black women as pitiful, prejudiced beings whose children confess to their white teacher that I can't talk to my mama, so I have to tell you that I'm trans. And this is a deliberate indoctrination of the Black community, backed by the ability to take people's jobs, backed by the ability to brainwash your children. And what I'm really concerned about is when these things become law in the midst of fighting for all our other rights. For a while, it can look like this trans issue is not important, but wait until. Do we have to wait until it is too late? Do we have to wait until our children are being trafficked? Because this is connected to sex trafficking, it's connected to human slavery, it's connected to pedophilia. In the article in Female Erasure, I cite how certain medical facilities are actually sponsoring and observing rapes. It is really absurd. You know, Black people are once more monkeys in the cage, like Sarah Bartman, being experimented with. And for the people who say, well, what about Black trans people? I say, if a Black man stands in front of a mirror and he sees a white woman, that's his right and his problem. In truth, we have an ode for how to heal people who don't like what they see in the mirror. He can have his problem, but what he cannot do is demand that I see the same thing or change who and what I am to accommodate him. I am a woman in a woman's body, and I love it. We need protection from trans tyranny.